My daughter offered to pay my bills while I recovered from surgery. When I got better, I realized she'd never stopped. By then, she'd changed more than I understood. The stroke happened on a Tuesday morning. I was watering the orchids on my kitchen windowsill when my left hand simply stopped working. The watering can dropped, ceramic shattering across tile, and I remember thinking how odd it was that I could see it happening but couldn't make my body respond. My neighbor found me an hour later, slumped against the counter, trying to form words that wouldn't come. 3 days in the ICU, 2 weeks in rehabilitation, physical therapy 5 days a week to relearn how to button a shirt, hold a fork, write my own name. The doctors said I was lucky, minor ischemic stroke, good recovery potential, minimal lasting damage. At 67, lucky meant I might get back to 70% of what I'd been before. Diane visited every day during rehab. My oldest daughter, the organized one, the one who'd become a CPA like her father had been. She brought magazines I couldn't yet focus my eyes to read, and protein shakes the consistency of wallpaper paste. She sat in the vinyl chair beside my bed and made lists on a yellow legal pad. "Mom," she said one afternoon while I struggled through occupational therapy exercises, "we need to talk about your bills. The mortgage is due next week, the utilities, your insurance premiums." I nodded, exhausted from trying to manipulate small objects with fingers that felt wrapped in wool. "I can handle it," she said, "just temporarily, until you're back on your feet. You can add me to your checking account, give me online access. I'll make sure everything gets paid on time. You shouldn't have to worry about this while you're recovering." It made sense. Of course it made sense. I could barely sign my own name. How was I supposed to navigate online banking or write checks? Diane was competent, trustworthy, my daughter. She was offering to help during a crisis. Refusing would have been not just prideful but foolish. "Okay," I managed, the word coming out slightly slurred. "Thank you." She squeezed my hand, the good one. "That's what family does, Mom. We take care of each other." The bank paperwork came to the rehab center. Diane had already filled in most of it, neat capital letters in blue ink. I signed where she'd placed small adhesive arrows. My signature looked like a child's, shaky and uncertain, but it was legally mine. "I'll take good care of everything," Diane promised, sliding the forms into a folder. "You just focus on getting better." I did get better. Slowly, incrementally, frustratingly. By October, I was home, walking without the cane most days, preparing simple meals, managing the stairs to my bedroom without stopping to rest halfway up. The left side of my face had mostly evened out. My speech was clear again. I felt like myself, or close enough to it that the difference no longer defined every waking moment. Diane still came by twice a week, always with groceries I hadn't asked for, always checking that I was taking my medications correctly, always offering to drive me to appointments I could have managed on my own. "How are the bills?" I asked one evening in late October. "I should probably take that back over. You've done so much already." She was unpacking reusable bags on my counter, organizing items in the precise way she'd learned from her father. Canned goods by type, produce in the crisper, frozen items by meal category. "Oh, don't worry about that yet, Mom. Everything's running smoothly. No missed payments, no issues. Why add stress when you're still recovering?" "I'm recovered," I said. "The doctor cleared me. I'm back to normal activities." "Physical activities," she corrected, arranging cans with labels facing forward. "But cognitive load is different. Financial management requires focus, attention to detail. You don't want to make mistakes that could affect your credit." Something in her tone, not quite condescending, not quite concerned. Something that made me feel I needed to prove my competence rather than simply reclaim what had always been mine. "I've been managing my own finances for 45 years, I said, keeping my voice light. "I think I can handle it." She smiled, the same smile she'd given me when she was 16, and I'd suggested she might not be ready for a particular privilege. Patient, indulgent, faintly amused. "Of course you can, Mom. I'm just saying there's no rush. Let me keep helping a while longer." I didn't push. It seemed ungracious to argue with someone who'd stepped up during a crisis, who's still bringing me groceries and checking on me and clearly trying to be helpful. And maybe there was a small part of me that worried she was right. Maybe my focus wasn't quite as it had been. Maybe I was tired easier. Maybe accepting help wasn't surrender, but wisdom. November came, then December. Diane still paid the bills. I asked to see the statements in early January. "I'd like to review everything," I said. "Make sure I understand where things stand financially." "Of course," Diane said, but she didn't bring them the next time she visited, or the time after that. "I keep forgetting to print them out," she said when I asked again. "Everything's digital now. I can show you online sometime." "I have online access," I reminded her. "You set it up for me." "Right, but I changed the password for security. There was that data breach at the bank, remember? They recommended everyone update their passwords. I'll write down the new one for you." She never did. I tried logging in myself. My username worked, but the password didn't. I called the bank. They confirmed I was still listed on the account, but any password resets would require verification through the email on file. I asked what email that was. It was Diane's. "When was that changed?" I asked the customer service representative. "Let me check." A pause, keyboard clicks. September 14th. 2 weeks after my stroke, while I was still in rehabilitation, relearning how to dress myself. "Can we change it back to my email?" I asked. "Certainly. I'll just need to verify your identity. Can you confirm the last 4 transactions on the account?" I couldn't. I had no idea what the last 4 transactions were. I hadn't seen a statement in 5 months. "I'm sorry, ma'am. For security purposes, I can't make changes without proper verification. You'd need to come into a branch with identification and either access the account through your existing login or have the co-account holder present." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat at my kitchen table, the one where I'd raised 3 children and paid bills and done homework help and celebrated birthdays, and tried to understand what I was feeling. Not quite alarm, not quite anger, something quieter and more unsettling. The sense that the ground beneath me had shifted in some fundamental way I'd failed to notice. Diane called that evening, her voice bright. "Hi, Mom. Just checking in. Do you need anything from the store?" "I need the password to my bank account." A pause, barely perceptible. "Oh, right. I keep meaning to write that down for you. I'll bring it by this weekend." "Why did you change the email on file to yours?" "Did I?" She sounded genuinely puzzled. "I don't remember doing that. Maybe it was a default setting when I got added to the account. Banks do weird things with that stuff. I'll call them and get it straightened out." It sounded reasonable. It sounded like something that could be a simple administrative error rather than something deliberate. I wanted to believe it was an error. "Okay," I said. "This weekend then. The password and we'll fix the email." "Absolutely," Diane said. "Oh, and Mom, I put through your property tax payment today. It was due by the 15th. You're all set." I'd forgotten about the property tax. I'd been handling that payment myself for 30 years, but this year it had simply not been on my radar. Diane had remembered. Diane had taken care of it. Maybe I should have been grateful. The weekend came. Diane arrived with more groceries and a printout of my recent bank statements, 3 months' worth, neatly stapled. I sat down to review them while she put away the food. The mortgage payment, that looked right. Utilities, yes. Insurance premiums, property tax, all of it correct. And other payments I didn't immediately recognize. Monthly subscriptions to services I'd never heard of. Automatic withdrawals to what appeared to be investment accounts. "What's this?" I asked, pointing to a $500 withdrawal labeled Fidelity Transfer. Diane glanced over from the refrigerator. Oh, that's the investment account I set up for you. We talked about this, remember? Putting some of your savings into a diversified portfolio. Better returns than just sitting and checking. We hadn't talked about it. I would have remembered that conversation. I don't remember agreeing to that, I said carefully. You were pretty out of it in September, Diane said, her tone gentle. The medications they had you on, the stress of recovery. We talked about it during one of my visits at rehab. You said it sounded like a good idea. Had I? I couldn't remember. There were gaps in my memory from those weeks, holes where exhaustion and medication had blurred days into each other. It was possible. It was possible I'd agreed to something I didn't now recall. But $500 a month was substantial, $60,000 over 10 years, assuming it continued, and I'd never been someone who invested significant amounts. I'd kept my money simple, accessible, safe. I'd like to stop that transfer. Of course, if that's what you want, though you should know you're already up 12%. The market's been good. But it's your money, Mom, your choice. She said it like I was being foolish, like I was making an emotional decision that ignored sound financial advice, like I was the one who didn't understand what was best. I'd like to stop it, I repeated. Okay, I'll take care of it. But she didn't. The next month, another $500 went out. When I asked about it, Diane explained there was a waiting period for changes to automatic transfers, something about processing times and fund policies. It sounded technical. It sounded like something that might be true. I called Fidelity myself. The account was in my name, but I couldn't access it. The security questions Diane had set up used answers I didn't know. My mother's maiden name was apparently not what I'd always believed it to be, at least not according to the account's security. The representative suggested I contact the person who'd set up the account to retrieve the information. The person who'd set up the account was my daughter. March arrived, cold and wet. My younger daughter, Beth, called from Arizona. We talked once a month, brief conversations about her work and her partner and the weather, the light surface chat of family members who love each other but live separate lives. How are you feeling? Really feeling, not the polite answer. I'm fine. Then I reconsidered. Actually, I'm not sure. Something feels off, but I can't articulate what. Off how? I told her about the bank account, the password, the email, the investment transfers I didn't remember authorizing. As I spoke, I could hear how it sounded. Small things, administrative details, the kind of confusion that could happen to anyone, especially someone recovering from a stroke. Mom, Beth said when I finished, her voice very quiet, that's not okay. It might be nothing. I might have forgotten conversations we had. I was pretty impaired for a while. Even if you did forget, which I doubt, you're not impaired now. You asked for access back. She's not giving it to you. That's not helping. That's controlling. I sat with that word, controlling. It felt too harsh for what Diane was doing. She was organized, careful, perhaps overly cautious about returning responsibility too quickly. But controlling suggested intent. It suggested that she wanted this arrangement to continue. Talk to her, Beth said, directly. Tell her you want full access restored by the end of the week, or you'll go to the bank in person and have her removed. That seems extreme. Does it? Mom, it's your money, your account, your life. She was supposed to help temporarily. It's been 6 months. You're recovered. What reason does she have to keep control except that she wants it? After we hung up, I sat with my tea growing cold and thought about my daughters. Diane, the responsible one, the one who'd always needed to be in charge of things, who'd organized her siblings' activities and made schedules and color-coded her school notebooks. Beth, the one who'd left home at 18 and called infrequently, but who, when she did call, cut through polarities to say what needed saying. I appreciated Diane's helpfulness. I'd never considered what it might cost to be on the receiving end of it permanently. The next day, I drove to the bank. I brought my driver's license, my social security card, my birth certificate. I walked up to a teller and asked to speak with a manager about my account. The manager, a woman named Patricia, listened to my situation with a carefully neutral expression. Mrs. Harrison, you're listed as the primary account holder. You have every right to access your own account. Let me pull up your information. She typed, frowned, typed more. I see the issue. There's a note here that all account changes require dual authorization from both signers. That was added as a security feature when your daughter was added to the account. I didn't authorize that, I said. Patricia's expression shifted slightly, something that might have been sympathy or might have been the careful professionalism of someone who'd seen this before. According to our records, you did. There's a signature on file from September. I was recovering from a stroke in September. I signed whatever was put in front of me. I understand, and I'm sorry you're in this situation, but from the bank's perspective, we have documentation with your signature. To remove the dual authorization requirement, we'd need both signers to agree, or we'd need a court order establishing that the original signature was obtained under duress or during incapacity. So, I can't access my own money without my daughter's permission? You can access it, Patricia corrected gently. You can make withdrawals, deposits. What you can't do is modify account settings, change signers, or alter security features without the co-signer's approval. I drove home very carefully, both hands on the wheel, my mind trying to process what I'd learned. Diane had locked me into an arrangement I couldn't unilaterally exit. She'd done it while I was vulnerable, while I was signing documents I couldn't properly read, while I was trusting her to help me. The question Beth had asked echoed. What reason does she have to keep control except that she wants it? I called Diane that evening. No preamble, no small talk. I went to the bank today. Oh? Her voice was pleasant, unsurprised. Is everything okay? You set up dual authorization on my account. I can't make changes without your permission. A pause. That's just a security feature, Mom. It protects both of us. From what? From fraud, from someone trying to manipulate you into making financial changes. Older adults are targets for scams. I was protecting you. I don't need protection from myself. I never said you did. Her voice had taken on an edge now, the patient tone fraying slightly. But you do need protection from people who might take advantage of you. You're isolated, Mom. You live alone. You're at an age where cognitive decline can happen gradually. Having someone else on the account who can monitor for unusual activity is smart planning. Then you won't mind removing the dual authorization requirement? I think that would be unwise. It's not your decision to make. Actually, Diane said, and now the patience was completely gone, replaced with something harder. It is. That's what dual authorization means. We both have to agree, and I don't agree that it's in your best interest to remove a safety feature designed to protect you. From what? I asked again. From making mistakes you can't undo. I was shaking when I hung up, not from fear, not yet, from anger, from the sudden clarity of understanding what had happened. Diane had transformed help into control. She'd used my vulnerability as an opportunity to insert herself into my financial life in a way I couldn't easily reverse. And she believed she was right to do it. She genuinely thought she was protecting me, that her judgment about my competence was more reliable than my own. The next morning, I called an attorney. Her name was Susan Chen, and she'd been recommended by my primary care physician when I'd asked, hypothetically, about elder law. I'd thought I was asking for future reference, for some nebulous time when I might actually need such services. I hadn't expected to need her now. Susan listened without interrupting while I explained the situation. When she finished, she asked a single question. Do you have any documentation showing your mental state in September when you signed the dual authorization agreement?
I have medical records, discharge summaries from rehab, my neurologist's notes about cognitive function. Good, that helps. Mrs. Harrison, what your daughter did exists in a legal gray area. She didn't steal from you, she hasn't emptied your accounts, or committed fraud. What she's done is use a legitimate banking feature in a way that restricts your autonomy. Proving that she obtained your signature during a period of diminished capacity will be key to unwinding this. How long will it take? Months, possibly. We'll need to file paperwork with the court, provide medical evidence, demonstrate that you're currently competent to manage your own affairs. Your daughter will have the opportunity to contest it. She will contest it, I said. She thinks she's helping me. Susan's voice was kind. Many adult children do. They see a parent struggle and they decide the parent can't be trusted to make decisions anymore. Sometimes they're right, often they're not. The law tries to balance protection with autonomy, but it's an imperfect system. I hired her that day. The legal notice arrived at Diane's house 3 weeks later. I know because she called me within an hour, her voice tight with something that might have been hurt or might have been fury. You're suing me. I'm petitioning the court to remove the dual authorization requirement you added to my account while I was incapacitated. I can't believe you're doing this after everything I've done for you. You've done a lot, I agreed, and I'm grateful for the help when I needed it, but I don't need it anymore, and you won't give back control. Because you're not thinking clearly. This is exactly the kind of impulsive decision I was trying to protect you from. You're hiring a lawyer to fight your own daughter over a security feature meant to help you. It's meant to control me. It's meant to keep you safe. Her voice cracked on the last word, and I heard something underneath the anger. Fear, maybe, or the desperation of someone whose identity is built on being needed, on being the competent one, on managing and organizing things and solving problems for people who couldn't solve them themselves. Diane, I said quietly, I had a stroke. I didn't become incompetent. There's a difference. You could have another one. You're at higher risk now. What happens if you have another stroke and you've cut me out of your finances? Who's going to help you then? If I have another stroke, I'll make arrangements then, but I won't make them now based on what might happen. I won't give up my autonomy because I might someday lose it anyway. This is a mistake. You're going to regret this.
She hung up before I could respond. The court date was set for late April. In the weeks leading up to it, Diane stopped visiting. She still paid the bills. I verified that much through the monthly statements she'd agreed to provide as part of the legal discovery process. But the groceries stopped coming. The check-in calls stopped. My eldest daughter, the one who'd visited every day during rehab, had removed herself from my life except for the financial transactions she still controlled. Beth called every few days. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I said, and mostly I was. But there was a grief in it, too. The loss of a relationship I'd thought we had. I'd believed Diane and I were close. I'd believed she helped me because she loved me. Now I wasn't sure which part had been real. She'll come around, Beth said, though she didn't sound convinced. Maybe, or maybe this is who she's always been and I didn't want to see it. The court hearing was brief and administrative. Susan presented medical records documenting my cognitive state in September, impaired focus, slowed processing, mild confusion. She presented my neurologist's current assessment, full recovery of cognitive function, no deficits in memory or executive function. She called me to the stand. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair, asked me questions about my daily life. Could I manage my medications? Yes. Prepare my own meals? Yes. Drive safely? Yes. Handle my own finances? I had for 45 years before the stroke, and I was fully capable of doing so now. Diane's attorney, a young man who looked fresh out of law school, argued that the dual authorization was a reasonable precaution given my age and medical history. He suggested that removal would leave me vulnerable to financial exploitation. He made it sound like I was demanding the right to make dangerous decisions, like an elderly person insisting on driving despite failing vision. The judge listened to both sides, reviewed the medical documentation, and made her ruling from the bench. Mrs. Harrison has provided clear evidence that she was cognitively impaired when the dual authorization was added to her account. She has also provided clear evidence of current competency. While I appreciate that Miss Harrison believed she was acting in her mother's best interest, temporary guardianship, even informal guardianship, must end when the underlying incapacity ends. I'm ordering the bank to remove the dual authorization requirement and restore Mrs. Harrison to full independent control of her account. It was over in 20 minutes. I stood outside the courthouse afterward, Susan beside me, spring sunlight warm on my face. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you go to the bank with the court order. They'll process it, probably take a few days. Your daughter will be removed as a cosigner unless you choose to keep her on in a non-authorizing capacity." "I don't choose that." Susan nodded. "I thought you might not." "Thank you," I said, "for believing me, for not treating me like I was the problem." "You weren't the problem, Mrs. Harrison. You were someone who temporarily needed help and got trapped by it. That's more common than you'd think." I removed Diane from the account the following Monday, changed all the passwords to things only I knew, reset the email to my own address, stopped the automatic investment transfers, took back every piece of control I'd surrendered during those early days when I couldn't hold a pen steady enough to write my own name. Diane sent a text message 3 days later, short, formal. "I see you've removed me from your account. I hope you know what you're doing. If you need help in the future, I won't be available." I wrote back, "I understand. Thank you for your help when I needed it." She didn't respond. Beth came to visit in June. We sat on my back porch with iced tea and watched the roses I'd planted 15 years ago bloom in shades of coral and cream. We didn't talk about Diane. We talked about Beth's work, about a trip I was planning to take in the fall, and about whether I should adopt a cat now that I was home alone most days. "Are you angry?" Beth asked finally as the afternoon light shifted toward evening. I thought about it. Not anymore. I was, but mostly I'm just sad. Sad that she couldn't see me as anything other than someone who needed managing. Sad that she'll probably never understand why I had to fight her. "Do you think she really believed she was helping you?" "Yes, and that's what makes it complicated. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to save me from myself. She just couldn't accept that I didn't need saving." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Beth said, "I'm proud of you, you know, for fighting back. A lot of people wouldn't have. A lot of people don't realize they need to until it's too late." That night, I made myself dinner. Something simple, pasta with vegetables. I ate at the kitchen table with a book propped against the salt shaker, and I paid my own bills online afterward. Small, ordinary tasks, the unremarkable routines of an independent life. Diane and I haven't spoken in 4 months now. I don't know if we will again. I've learned that love doesn't always survive the collision between care and control, between what someone thinks you need and what you know you deserve. I survived a stroke. I survived the temporary loss of my independence. What I almost didn't survive was the person who thought temporary should become permanent. If stories like this resonate with you, you may want to stay with this channel. I still see Diane's car sometimes, passing through the neighborhood. She doesn't stop, I don't wave. We've become strangers who used to be family, separated by a line I had to draw to remain myself. I'm 78 now. I manage my own finances. I make my own decisions. Sometimes I make mistakes. They're mine to make. That's what independence means. Not perfection, but agency. The right to my own life, even the parts that are difficult.
Sometimes I think about other parents in similar situations, the ones who didn't fight back, who let the temporary help become permanent control because it was easier, or because they were tired, or because they didn't realize they had the right to say no. I think about the daughter who thinks she's helping, and I think about the mother who's losing herself one bill payment at a time and doesn't recognize it until she's gone. That almost happened to me, but I'm still here.